All right, good afternoon, guys. For those of you on the East Coast, good morning to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks for joining us today on this Saturday. As you know from the promo that we do have some guests from the indie film known as Go, Don't Go. First up, we do have its writer and director. So give me one moment while I introduce them on. They are, as I said, the writer and director of the latest from Gravitas Ventures. So without further ado, I would like to introduce writer and director Alex Knapp. Give me one sec. Hey, Alex, how's it going?
Hey man, how's it going? Good.
Good, good, good. Well, first off, thanks again for coming and joining the show today. Before we hop into it, how are you doing? How you been?
Good. Yeah, it's been a crazy couple weeks with just the release of the movie and doing a bunch of PR and interviews and stuff like this, which is all pretty new to me. So, yeah, it's been a little crazy, but it's good. It's good. And I'm happy the movie's out there and people are watching it, and so can't complain.
Awesome, awesome. So hopping right into it, can you tell me first, how this story came about, this isolated story, so to speak?
Yeah, quite a few years ago, probably like 5 or 6 years ago, I had a crazy kind of dream nightmare one night where I was playing baseball on a baseball diamond with a bunch of friends, and we were having a good time and laughing and playing baseball. And then kind of the camera of the dream kind of panned out, and it revealed that I was playing baseball totally alone, and that a pitching machine was shooting balls at me, and I was kind of overcome with this feeling of loneliness, and I had thought people were there and they weren't, and woke up from that and just was kind of a little freaked out, and it was like a super vivid dream that kind of stuck with me, and that was kind of the initial genesis. And then kind of thinking about wanting to write a script and shoot a film, and kind of took that idea and parlayed it with a bunch of other things that were kind of happening in my life and things that I was thinking about. And then, yeah, came up with a little kind of outline and ended up shooting a little trailer teaser thing with a couple colleagues of mine about a year later. And then we took that and the script and a pitch packet, and spent some time and kind of got other people involved in the project and got some investing and brought some executive producers on board, and so it was kind of a culmination of different things, and kind of started from there.
Awesome, awesome. And the thing that's fascinating in talking about this story that just as you said talks about that loneliness, that isolation, and watching the film and observing, its cinematography, just that idea of, or I should say, just the logistics of having spaces that are completely vacant. It's always cool to see it, in a particular project, but immediately when I see it, I always think dollar signs because you know this, being on the background of it as a filmmaker, but maybe those that are watching it may not be aware of how expensive it can be to have a place that's completely vacant, and the logistics of that, what on any location that you have, to make sure that it's completely devoid of anything, any people, so to speak. So
Yeah.
can you talk to that and just the logistics of that in creating that sense of loneliness within the resources available to you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, we got pretty lucky. And in our situation, one of the things that really allowed us to make the movie was I have some friends who grew up on this kind of family farm up here in upstate New York where we shot the film, and it's this 500-acre property in the middle of kind of nowhere, and it's got like 5 or 6 houses on it. It's got farmlands and warehouses and garages and forests and fields, and I was able to kind of strike a deal with them where we had kind of the run of the land for about 3 to 4 weeks. Um, and on that property by itself, allowed us to shoot all these different locations, and it's got these rolling hills, and it's just, as far as the eye can see, kind of just nothingness. And so we kind of had the lay of the land there for 3 or 4 weeks, which was great. And a huge portion of the film was shot on that property, and we could kind of come and go as we pleased and shoot as long as we wanted, and have kind of total control of that space. And then a lot of the other locations, yeah, it was just about finding what worked for us as far as kind of still selling this big empty vastness, but being able to have control of that. Luckily in upstate New York where we shot the film, that's kind of inherently part of the landscape. It's like big open vistas and vast valleys and not a lot of people around. It's pretty rural, and if you just kind
Yeah.
of wait somewhere long enough, you'll get a good opportunity where there's just no one. So that was definitely helpful. And then some of it we just kind of lucked out, something like the bowling alley in the film is, we were looking at a handful of bowling alleys, and we ended up finding one in Kingston, New York, that was like almost like a converted airport hangar. It was just massive, and just kind of went on forever. And we were able to get in there for a day and kind of own the whole place. And so even some of the interiors, having them be big and giant and empty, definitely helped us kind of sell that vibe.
Gotcha, gotcha. And in thinking about it from the internal aspect of your character, going from external to internal, and thinking of one thing that comes to mind, it was fascinating in thinking of what one of the characters were saying about failing upwards, and that whole idea of your character, and being placed in all these serendipitous situations that are great. However, based on the character itself, having that kind of that dichotomy of like action and inaction, and really wrestling with acting on something, and how things could have turned out differently, in terms of acting on something versus kind of not making a decision or making a definitive choice on things. Can you speak to that a little more? Because I found that like that dichotomy interesting.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was kind of interesting with the character of Adam to be, usually in these kind of last man on earth films or something, something like I Am Legend or something, you see the last person's like a biochemist and a marine, and they're gonna like shoot their way to the answer, and they're gonna find the cure, and all of these sorts of things. And I just found what was interesting to me was, what if kind of the last person is just a normal dude who like hasn't seen all these post-apocalyptic movies, and he's not prepared for this, and he doesn't have training, and he doesn't have special skills. He just happens to be the random guy who's here, and he's more of a wallflower, and he doesn't have a plan, and he's not going to fix it. And and kind of here he is. And a lot of people would look at that, and I think, part of what Adam was experiencing was this level of survivor's guilt, and like, why me? Why am I the guy? It shouldn't have been me. It should have been someone else. I can't take advantage of this situation. And I don't know what to do here. Um, and then, that conversation with Kyle, who's played by Nori Davis, who was awesome and great to have on the project, and kind of brought this. He has a comedy background, so he brought this kind of awesome flavor to the role. That was something that I frankly couldn't have even written on the page. So it was great to have him there. Part of that conversation too is like, it has so many kind of double meanings. It's Adam talking to Kyle saying, "Hey, it probably should have been you," as far as just the kind of person Kyle is. It's also speaking to, some of the kind of, racial undertones in Hollywood and stuff, and just being like, "Hey, like it'd be great to see a character like you being this character. Why isn't that happening?" And also me kind of as the writer and director kind of speaking to myself a little bit, and some of the feelings that I was going through when writing the movie, of just being like, um, I've been given the opportunity to make this film. Do I deserve this? Like, what am I really doing here? This should probably be somebody else. Why am I acting in this and directing it and writing it? Like, I don't know. So it had kind of a lot of different layers there in that conversation, in that scene.
Definitely, definitely. And in terms of the way that you executed the story in being able, I feel like in doing these types of stories where there isn't a lot of speech and a lot of the stories being told visually, and being able to interpret based on what's being provided to you as the audience. As a storyteller, I feel like that can be, somewhat tricky in a fine line of, am I telling too much? Am I not telling enough? Can you speak to that as well, in trying to find that balance? Because I feel like with this film, it gives you enough where you're able to determine details within the story without being, hit on the head on every single facet of everything that's going on. And it's not absolutely necessary to know everything. So
Yeah, yeah, and that was definitely by design and something that we built in and planned on, and kind of a little bit out of necessity too. Like you said, when you have a movie that's predominantly one character who doesn't really have anyone to talk to, you have to get creative on what kind of pushes the story along. And for us, a lot of that was playing with the mystery of what happened and what we're going to tell you and what we're not going to tell you, playing with the idea of what's real, what's not real, what's in his head, what's made up, what's the past, what's the present, what's is he going crazy, is he not going crazy, are there other people there, are there not other people there? So those were the things that kind of allowed us to push the story through, and kind of, as every 5 or 10 minutes or so, you get another kind of one of those moments that makes you think a different thing, and then 5, 10 minutes later you get another one that maybe subverts you just saw. And so part of that was out of kind of necessity, and of just the structure of our film, and kind of what we were working with.
definitely, definitely. And I'm sure if you have a nickel every time you hear this, but just the idea of when this, and of course you wouldn't know, but when this film is during the time now that this film is being released, is pretty, poignant. So just that idea. Can you also speak to just
Yeah.
that idea too of um, that idea of, just as you were saying, with putting this story together and thinking of all the things that you encounter very much, in the industry, and how that connects to a lot of what we're seeing now as we are resetting, so to speak, and really like reevaluating many of the things that we perceive as quote unquote important, and things that actually have far more significance, or yeah, I guess I would say that significance in terms of what we should attribute in our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting. Obviously, right now, with pandemic and quarantine and COVID, and a lot of the stuff happening right now, kind of just coincidentally, a lot of the things in the movie are maybe a little bit more relevant than ever, and more relevant than I could have ever thought of. And go dealing with isolation, and dealing with thinking about what your life is and what your life could have been, and where you should be and where you are, and what went wrong or what went right, and kind of you in comparison to everyone else. a lot of those sort of things are at play in the film, and I think, with and how how you fit into society, and what are your kind of duties as being a part of society. And so much of that is Adam is like, there's no, you'd think Adam, there's some people who are going to watch the film and be like, oh, well, this guy should be trying to do more. He should be trying to do more and figuring stuff out because he has this duty as the last person around. Um, but it's tough. I think a lot of it too, in the film, plays to a certain, is also kind of talking about mental illness and things like that, and it's really about kind of this character's emotional journey and things that he's trying to figure out, and trying to move on from, and so much of it plays as a metaphor, and which for some people is difficult. It doesn't beat you over the head. It's not going to give you every answer. It's going to allow you to kind of come to some of your own conclusions, and yeah, I mean, that was, again, kind of something that we thought was original and unique and interesting, and things that we wanted to talk about, and still maybe be a little subtle with, and again, not be super super overt and super, beat you over the head with a lot of these themes and kind of social themes, but have them in there. um we thought was kind of interesting and unique and important.
Great, great. Well, Alex, thank you so much for, as I said, hopping on the show and talking about Go, Don't Go. As I mentioned, for those of you watching out there, it is available now on demand and digital. Before I let you go, Alex, can you tell folks where they can find you?
Yeah, they can find me on Instagram at Alex Knapp, and Twitter, which is Alex underscore Knapp underscore. And they can search me on Facebook. They can find the movie at godon'tgo.film, is the movie's website. And like you said, it's on iTunes, Amazon Prime, Vudu, Vimeo. It's on a bunch of cable on demand providers, so like Comcast and Verizon. So it's out there. It's out in the world, and thanks for having me on. Appreciate the talking about it and thinking about it, and yeah, hopefully people find it and give it a chance.
All right, well, there you guys have it. Again, thanks so much to Alex for coming on the show. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find us on Facebook, which you're watching now live stream. However, you can also find us on YouTube with our encore episodes of these live streams. You can find us on Twitter at Move and Shake UNLTD, on Instagram at Movers Shakers Unlimited, and of course, you can find me, Brandon Troy ENT, on Twitter, and Brandon Troy underscore ENT on Instagram. Thanks so much for watching. Be safe out there, and also stay tuned, as we will have Star Olivia, also on the show in a little bit, also from Go Don't Go. So I will see you guys soon. Later.
Cool. Thanks, man.
Absolutely.